What is going on, Fleet Nation? Welcome to episode 48, and I'm Brendan.
And I'm Jarod. And Brendan, please introduce our special guest for this podcast.
Yes, so we have Freddie Coleman, my professor at Marist College and ESPN radio host, joined here with us today. Super stoked to have you. How you doing, Freddie?
I'm good, guys. How's everybody doing? How's everybody's weekend?
Weekend was good. Football, Jets got a dub.
Yep, I enjoyed a good family weekend here at Marist.
Good.
And watched the Giants take on the Bears to get a dub. So it was a good weekend. How about you?
It was good. I mean, both my teams, the Jets and Cowboys, were able to pull games out. I wasn't surprised about the Dallas Cowboys, but I love the Jets showed in the fourth quarter after being down 20-10. Could have been very easy for them to pack it in, but they didn't. So give them a lot of credit how they were able to make that work, especially with Zach Wilson going 10 for 12 in the fourth quarter, leading that victory.
100%. And for me, I mean, being a Jets fan, we'll start there. We'll just dive right in. New York Jets going in up against Heinz Field. I believe it's been over 50 years since the New York Jets have got it done in Pittsburgh, and we were able to get it done. And I thought it was a sloppy game. There's a lot of penalties going on. Obviously, we saw that delayed hit by Carl Lawson that changed the momentum. I know that Rob Saleh was fired. He was pissed off about that, rightfully so. I'd be mad too. But I think, Zach Wilson, for the most part, he did a decent job. I didn't like that one interception that he threw. That kind of was reminiscent of how he was in the past. And I wanted to see like a more refined version of him. Obviously, there's going to be some rust coming off of a 4 to 6 week injury. But overall, I thought Mike LaFleur, there were some questionable play calls on his behalf. But in the beginning, I mean, the conservative play style, just trying to ease him back in, get rid of those nerves and those jitters. What did you think about Mike LaFleur's play calling? Did you like it? Did you think that there was some, do you have anything to say against it?
No, not at all, because you made the point, Brendan, about him easing Zach Wilson back into the lineup when he had not played since he got injured in the preseason versus Philadelphia. So the last thing you can do is go out there in a hostile environment, playing against a pretty good defense in Pittsburgh, even though they don't have TJ Watt, and try to get your quarterback started that way. And I thought that was the right approach to the game plan. And I hear you about the interception, but that was more of a case of the Pittsburgh defense baited him, because that guy should not have been in that position. They were able to switch and call that coverage, and that baited Zach Wilson. A lot of quarterbacks would have thrown that pick in that situation, because that was a great side adjustment by the Steelers defense. But I didn't have a problem with the game plan, because a lot of people will say that, well, they didn't run for enough yards, but they were able to run the football enough and run the football with attempts. And I thought Zach Wilson, other than that one throw for the interception, there were a couple of plays where he was holding on to the ball too long, but then he realized it was as if he said to himself, can't hold the ball too long, throw the ball away, get ourselves out of trouble. So at one point he was 10 of 27 throwing the football, and then he was able to make that work in the fourth quarter, making those kind of reads, and the running game was able to help him. So I thought Mike LaFleur, as a game planner, did a really good job making sure that his quarterback was not going to be out of sorts. And when he needed his quarterback to make some throws in that fourth quarter and that final drive, Zach Wilson was able to come through.
Most definitely.
He ended the game 18 for 36, 252 yards, a touchdown catch, and 2 interceptions, as you said. And it was a great play call with the touchdown catch. It was fun to see Zach Wilson out there looking like kind of how athletic and versatile he was at BYU in his first game back. And he distributed the ball really well in receiving. Corey Davis, 5 receptions, Elijah Moore, 3, Conklin with the big 52 yards. So Zach Wilson did a great job commanding his offense in his first game back, introduced to the team. And the Steelers didn't look that great at all on offense. They went to Kenny Pickett, which many people were looking forward to, but he did throw 3 interceptions. And your free agent signing for your safety, who was that again?
Well, LaMarcus Joyner got 2 picks, so he balled out.
Yeah, and Whitehead got that pick too from the
Whitehead played good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it was overall impressive for the Jets. We said last week I didn't think the Jets were going to take this one against the Steelers, but it's a different time in the Jets culture.
There's a couple of things I want to talk about really quickly, just piggybacking off of what Freddie said and Jarod. Talking about Mike LaFleur, I want to, you can't have a perfect game. Never will have a perfect game in the NFL. So from the play calling standpoint, there's a couple of things that first of all, I want to acknowledge the Philly special. That was great to see Zach out there catching balls from his good old friend Braxton Barrows, doing the gritty too. So got some swagger, got some flavor in the end zone. Gotta love it. But let's talk about some things that that bothered me a little bit. First off, wasn't the biggest fan of how Zach was going deep in the pocket for most of the game. Like I really felt like coming off of a MCL, partially torn MCL injury, That's not the best idea to have him chilling in the pocket, moving back in yardage. I think, more shotgun, more RPOs, not necessarily trying to instigate run action, but more so just comfortability, like more curls, like that could have happened. Putting him in the pocket for like a longer time bothered me as a Jets fan a little bit because I didn't want to see him get hit. But correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Zach Wilson was only sacked once or twice throughout the whole game. So
that was it.
One time. And big shout out to Elijah Vera-Tucker coming out there and starting at the left tackle position. This guy has been a stud, should be a Pro Bowler this year, in my opinion. One of the best guards, playing like one of the best guards in the league. That next man up mentality coming up there, playing good. And obviously Max Mitchell going down for what it hopefully will not be a season-ending injury, but what we think is several weeks now. That definitely was a big blow because he came in and was stepping up as well. One thing I want to talk about Zach Wilson, his game, and I want to hear your thoughts and your opinions on this. Zach Wilson, the one thing that bothered me was early on in the beginning of the game, I saw him just keep looking for Elijah Moore. And I want to see him scan through his progressions, be the point guard of the football team, not just look for 8-ball, not just look for Elijah. We have hella talent around this football team. All right. Like Joe Douglas did his due diligence. He got Garrett Wilson. He got the two-headed snake, great tight end duo between Azuma and also Conklin. So there's plenty of weapons around the ball. To see him just go to 8-ball every single look, I thought was a little bit premature, just going through the one read progressions. That kind of bothered me. And that's why I think that it led to that interception. I know that you mentioned about how he was baited by the secondary, which very much so could be the case. But I think you could play devil's advocate. I think the secondary caught on and realized that 8-ball was getting all the looks. But you know what? Zach Wilson was able to turn it around. He was able to distribute the ball in crucial situations. I have to give credit when credit was due. He was out there. He said to the team, let's go score this freaking touchdown. And he had that mentality to put his team on the shoulders and get the win.
One thing I will say to combat what you had to say, Brendan, because it is a fair point, but you're going to do the things that are going to allow your quarterback to be a lot more comfortable in his first start of the season. And that's why we saw a lot of max protect, and we saw Zach Wilson in a lot of 5-step drops, or even in the shotgun, giving him more chances to drop back and see the rush coming at him to get a comfort level and know exactly where his reads were going to be. So Mike LaFleur wanted to make sure that whatever he was going to be the most comfortable with was going to be part of the game plan when it comes to Zach Wilson. And as far as looking for 8-ball comes to Elijah Moore, that's who he's comfortable with now. But you're right. As the game went along, he had to make the adjustments, go to other people that they're able to bring into this New York Jets team. And remember, it's the NFL. Those things are going to happen, that when somebody makes adjustments to you, then you got to make adjustments to them. The Pittsburgh Steelers took Elijah Moore away. So what did he do? He was forced to go to other people, but he didn't keep trying to force the ball to Elijah Moore. So give him a lot of credit for that growth and that maturation as he was able to do that throughout the game on the road against Pittsburgh. We would not have seen this from Zach Wilson last year. He just kept trying to fire the ball and try to make that ball fit to Elijah Moore. But here's something else to help this comfort level. He didn't miss too many layups. When guys were open and he did not throw the ball at their feet, he didn't throw the ball too high or too low. He allowed his receivers to be in position, not only to make plays and make catches, but allowed to have yards after the catch. We didn't see too many times where he threw a ball behind a guy or a guy had to reach for it. If a guy had to reach for that football, he's able to keep going and stay in stride. So if he can be able to trampoline off those things and he can do different things, the more and more he's going to get comfortable, then you won't have to wait to see if that's going to happen throughout the course of the game. You can build that into your game plan, because now you've got a game one. You've been able to figure out a little bit more between him and Mike LaFleur, because they have not had a lot of time together when it comes to seeing NFL action.
And I like how you said, he showed like he belongs to NFL. It's an NFL game. That's what Salah had to say after the game. The Jets had a 10-point lead and then lose it and came back and win. It's a very overall impressive win. The Jets, these 4 games in, were down, and up. So hopefully with the consistency at quarterback, the Jets can continue to perform what I think they're capable of doing, which is compete in games and get victories here and there. Who is your next opponent next week?
We got the Dolphins, divisional matchup at home.
And no Tua. No Tua. So it's going to be a huge game if you guys could muster it up and go. It's in Miami too?
No, it's at home.
At home. So I think you guys have a good shot at the Tua-less Dolphins. And what do we think about next week's game, Brendan?
I mean, obviously, the Dolphins got the best receiver duo in the league with Reek and Waddle. These guys mean business. They're burners. They can catch. They can get cornerbacks dizzy. And if you think about it, Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Bridgewater, he's going to be out there and he can ball. I mean, he played for the Jets. We saw him do his thing. You should not sleep on this guy. He's out here with a chip on his shoulder, trying to show people that he's still got it, and he can spin the rock. This guy can go out here and throw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. You can't sleep on this guy. I think it's good comfort football for the New York Jets being home in front of the Sea of Green. Jet Nation, we're going to be fired up. This is the first time in 5 years that the Jets won back-to-back away games. Usually, traditionally, we do not win games away. So you could sense this new sense of culture with this New York Jets team, getting the dubs. Sauce was turning up in the locker room. That's what you love to see. So I think the Jets fans are going to pop out. I remember the first game, season opener, we had 78,000 people in attendance, and I'm pretty sure that the second home game mirrored that as well against the Cincinnati Bengals. So you best believe that us New York Jets fans will be there turning up in the stadium and in the bleachers. But listen, I mean, you can't sleep on this team. They're hungry. I think that they're on the brink of becoming a super team here in the AFC. I think they're here to stay. And, so I think that it's going to be a dogfight, but I would have to give the leverage to the Miami Dolphins. How about you, Freddie?
You definitely give the leverage to a team that is a little bit more experienced, and they have the kind of firepower really on both sides of the football, because they can really get after the quarterback with their pass rush, where they can throw so many different looks at you that can confuse quarterbacks, take away your running game, a lot of great disguise coverages that this defense is going to use. But the one thing I will say about the Jets, and it goes back to what Robert Salah said after he said that he's keeping receipts. Ever since he put that out there, they're 2-1. So it's one thing to put that out there, but it's another thing for your team to have your back. And that's what's been able to happen with the New York Jets. And now you get into division play. We play Miami Dolphins team that have at least 10 days of practice times in terms of stuff on the board and in the classroom, and then get on the practice field with Teddy Bridgewater. So it's going to be a drop-off. You would think it should be a drop-off between your starting quarterback, when it's Tua Tagovailoa, and your backup quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. But it's not going to be that much of a drop-off, because when Bridgewater got in the game last Thursday, he didn't play too badly until the end, where I thought the Bengals defense were able to override the offensive line of the Miami Dolphins and put that kind of pressure on him. And they were not able to run the football. They just gave up on that. But you can best believe that Teddy Bridgewater has the ability to go in there and make sure you have a balanced attack, but they're not just going to have him in second and third and long. And the defense can get after him, like we saw yesterday against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where the Jets were able to stop that running game pretty consistently in the second half. So I can't wait to see how this is going to match up, where you got a speedy Dolphins team on both sides of the football, and the Jets team still trying to find their sea legs, for lack of a better term, to find what kind of identity they're going to have, whether it's on defense, on the defensive side of the ball, or on the offensive side of the ball.
I'm excited for that Sauce Jalen Waddle matchup. It should be a good showing for your top draft pick this past year.
Yeah, I personally think that this game is the statement game for the New York Jets. We need to go out here. We need to get this win. We need to show that we're not all talk. We can walk it too. This is the statement game. And if you think about it, I mean, I got over here, you can't see it because the camera's not there, but I have the divisional standings. They're magnets. I change them every single week, right? The New York Jets are the third. We're in third place right now, courtesy to the New England loss to the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers doing his thing, getting the job done, getting wins. And if we beat the Dolphins, and if the Buffalo Bills somehow lose the Steelers next week, we're first in the division. And I mean, when do we ever have that conversation as Jets fans in September or early October? I mean, we're playing meaningful football now. I mean, it's a different change of energy. It's a different change of atmosphere. So that's why I personally think that this is our statement game. We have our 4th overall pick, Sauce Gardner, highly recruited, has not given up a touchdown since high school. That stat still remains. Going up against one of the league's best wide receivers, the fastest wide receiver in the NFL. It's going to be interesting. Get your popcorn ready. I can't wait. Like Bart Scott said himself, I can't wait. And I hope that the Jets can go out there and keep showing the media, keep showing the National Football League, keep showing the haters that we're here to play, that we're not the same old Jets no more.
Well, it's only we're building into the first quarter of the season, and Brendan, you have make a fair point about showing people, but the Jets have to show themselves. It can't be just about proving other people wrong. It's about proving what you do right, and they believe in what they're doing. Whether you have the head coach or Joe Douglas, the general manager, it can't just be about showing up people. You got to show it to yourselves and say, man, if we believe it, then we got to go out there and play and execute like we believe that. Because if we don't, then our expectations should be higher than anybody else's expectations. We can't concern ourselves with naysayers being out there saying this and saying that. He's already dealt with that already, as far as I'm concerned, early in the year by saying we're keeping receipts on those who have been continually knocking our football organization and our football team. The minute that he put that out there, he doesn't need that. He doesn't need to address that anymore. And he has not in the 2 wins they've gotten. So they've been able to have that happen since he put that out there. So it can't just be about showing up and proving people wrong. It's got to be about proving yourself right, that you believe what you're doing. You know, you put in place is going to work. And now you believe you have the tools and the players that can go out there and make that happen.
I got a question for you. If you're Woody Johnson, are you firing Jeff Ulbrich?
not by game 5. No, I think you have to let things marinate out until the end of the season and then assess where your organization is going to be, because there are plenty of people that believe that if this kept going downhill for the New York Jets, they move on from Robert Saleh as a coach in the second year. And I don't think that's possible. I don't think that's necessary either. So I'm not a big believer that you move on from somebody unless he is so toxic and untenable and he's bringing everybody down, then you do something like that. But as of right now, you're 2-2, you're coming off a win. If you're thinking about that, you may need to hold off on that until you absolutely have no choice.
So what do you think about the comments that he made about Quinnen Williams? Like, obviously he was exposing his physique and his ability on the field. Like, I'm just trying to look at things from a macro perspective here. Like, I'm a Jets fan, you're a Jets fan. We go through the dirt our whole lives. And I don't know. I mean, this defense up until recently, we haven't really been producing. We haven't really been getting to the quarterback. Mm-hmm. Robert Saleh is, edge presence. Like, that's his philosophy, get after the quarterback. And we haven't seen much of that. I'm pretty sure up until this week, we were ranked 28th in defense. We're not playing good. So, I mean, I understand where you're coming from. It's early. It's only been a month, but I just wanted to pick your brain on the Jeff Ulbrich situation in New York. Players are not openly not satisfied, but Quinnen obviously declined to speak to the media after that comment. Mm-hmm. So your thoughts, just keep riding it out. We'll see. Or
yeah, because right now he has not lost support of the people that are the most important, and that is the head coach and the GM. You can lose support with players as a coordinator or position coach, but if the head coach still is on your side, then that sends a message to players saying, okay, these two are together. What are we going to do about it? Because ever since he pulled that last week, Quinnen Williams, where they got into it, Quinnen Williams was like a man possessed yesterday. He was all over the field for the New York Jets. So if that's your way of motivating somebody, to get somebody that kind of talent, motivate them, and then he's able to self-motivate himself, then that plan worked. If you're the New York Jets, it's about holding people accountable. And if he goes beyond the line and goes past that line, then yeah, that's when you pull his coat a little bit and say, dude, okay, you made your point. You've been able to do that. Now you guys got to work together. So if he's able to manifest that and have himself think, okay, I got to back off a little bit. And if you're Quinnen Williams, you got to back up and go out there and play football, then this is going to continue to work. But if you're Quinnen Williams, you need somebody to really get under your skin that way. To me, it says a lot more about Quinnen Williams than about the coach who's trying to get his player motivated, because you don't try to motivate people that stink. And Quinnen Williams doesn't stink. If a guy is a terrible football player, you don't waste your time with him, whether you're a position coach or a coordinator. But a guy, Quinnen Williams, a top 5 draft pick, you're counting on this guy to be the linchpin of your defense. And if he's not playing up to those expectations or playing up to the believability you have in him, then you got to get in his behind a little bit. He did that, and we saw it pay off yesterday, the way he was a man possessed all over the football field for the New York Jets from his defensive line spot.
I think that's very well said. And every coach has their own philosophical perspective. I think when you have a guy like Robert Saleh that's walking around with good vibes only, 60 minutes, all of that, he's out there not trying to, what's the word? He's not trying to harm these players emotionally, psychologically. He wants to support them, and the positive will outweigh the negatives. And that's his philosophy. And then you have someone as a Jeff Ulbrich, who clearly is much more verbal, who clearly has a much different coaching philosophy. So I think seeing the two get mixed up with each other definitely stood out for me as a Jets fan. But I liked how you worded that. I think that's a very mature way of looking at it. And if it's working, then it's working, because Quinnen's balling and he's due for a contract soon. So I bring up these conversations because I want our homegrown talent. The Jets have had problems with our hometown talent. The last time we've given anyone a bag, I mean, I'm trying to think, Muhammad Wilkerson, that was actually good. So how well did that work out for us? So I'm trying to look for the future. I don't want to scare this man away. I love Quinnen Williams. I think he's the heartbeat of our defense, the anchor of our defense. And I want that relationship to be fostered here with the green and white. One more thing that I want to talk about, and then we'll talk about the New York Giants. Here's my problem with the Jets. All right. I don't like how we were up 10 points and we play lousy football. I don't like the penalties. I think the penalties reflect the coaching. Yes, Robert Saleh is getting dubs, but you're not going to get this win flying into Denver. You're not going to get this win flying into Lambeau. You're not going to get this win flying into Gillette Stadium. It's not going to happen. You're playing a team that's absent of one of their best star players in TJ Watt, who is a game changer. And you're playing question marks and quarterbacks in a rebuilding, retooling team. And we should have blown the doors off of the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're a better football team than them. We have more options. We're going up against a rookie quarterback in the second half. I couldn't stand the 2 field goals that we let up in under 7 minutes in the second half. I couldn't stand the late hits that we were playing. I don't like that style of football. I really don't. I mean, let's talk about Quincy Williams for a second. I know he's nursing his injury on the side, but he's been playing like kind of gruesome in my opinion. And I don't like that style of football. Let's go back to the Atlanta Falcons, or not the Atlanta Falcons, my fault. When we played the Eagles and Zach Wilson tweaked his MCL and he was injured. Remember that late hit on Jalen Hurts? I don't like that. I'm not for that. And I think that that's a bad sense of culture. And I think that that is a nitty play that pisses off the other opposing team. And I think it's bad karma. And I think that it comes from, and what happened in that situation? Zach goes down for 4 to 6 weeks. So I noticed this from a football perspective, and I see these, and I think it's young, antsy players that are trying to go out there and make a name for themselves. They're antsy, they're hungry, but I think that Saleh's got to work on that because it's a game of respect too, and we don't want to, create bad blood. So that's what I want. I want to see the Jets hold on to a lead, and I want to see us play a little bit more respectful, clean football, so that yeah.
I don't mind if someone has bad blood against you, because if they do, that means you're good. When I always hear about teams saying, boy, we respect the day out of that team, when they say that, because they know they can beat you and they know that you can't beat them. I heard that time and time again, for example, Army football before they got good. They're all coaches. There's nobody we respect more than Army football. We love what they do. And I say, yeah, you know why you're saying that? Because you have no fear that a team like that, like Army, can beat you. And that's where it's got to get to the New York Jets. When you start hearing bad blood from opposing players and opposing teams, that means the Jets are getting good. Go back to the years of Rex Ryan, where they were able to create bad blood against everybody they played. No one could stand them. The Colts couldn't stand them. The Bills couldn't stand them. The Dolphins couldn't stand them. Even teams in the NFC couldn't stand them. And Rex Ryan was like, good, I'm not here to make friends with the opponent. I'm here to beat the opponent. Are we going to respect people? Absolutely. But we're going to play our way. We're going to play Jet style. If you have a problem with it, then that's a you problem. That's not an us problem. And you're right. They got to clean up the penalties. They got to do a better job of playing with controlled ferocity. There's no doubt about that. In a game in the NFL, that's a very violent game and a very ferocious game. But I'm not going to punish a team that if an opposing team has bad blood towards them, because I don't want my opponents to be nice to me. If my opponents are being nice to me, that means they know they can beat us or they've already given up. That's the kind of culture that Robert Saleh wants to create. He's doing the same thing the New York Jets that worked with the San Francisco 49ers. Nobody can stand the 49ers, not just in their own division, but when they play them. You know why? Because you're always afraid they're going to kick you behind and take names. Those are the kind of teams that win. You look at the Green Bay Packers, they're doing Aaron Rodgers, a lot of bad blood with them. Kansas City Chiefs become a bad blood kind of team. Same thing to Buffalo Bills right now. If you're really, really good in a championship contender, there's always going to be bad blood, Brendan, because nobody wants you to continue winning. When you start hearing about, man, we respect that team a lot. Man, they fight hard and they play hard. That team usually stinks. That team usually sucks because people beat them all the time. Give me a team that people can't stand and say, man, I don't like that football team, because more often than not, that means that team is a championship contender or a team that's going to be a winning team.
Brady with the Patriots all like the past decade. Exactly.
Prime example. No one can stand the Patriots. You know why? Because for 20 years they were kicking behind and taking names. Now everybody respects the Patriots. What's their record? 1-3. I guarantee Bill Belichick does not want that, the New England Patriots.
That is true. So moving on to Giants with a better culture this year with Brian Dable. We get the dub against the Bears. Who would have thought that the highlight for the New York sports this weekend as a Mets fan would be the Giants winning? Overall, it was, I think, a much overall better game than in the Dallas game. Our defense really got pressure on Justin Fields, and we forced him to make mistakes, and we stopped the run for the most part. Khalil Herbert only had 77 yards. And our offense looked pretty electric sometimes with Saquon Barkley running, Daniel Jones running. I was joking that Jones kind of looked like Lamar Jackson out there, but we all know that he's not at that level yet. But he had a lot of great reads running the ball, 2 touchdowns rushing, And Saquon Barkley looking like a classic himself, 146 yards. So Giants overall, a 3-1 record now. Our wins aren't against the best teams in the league. So you saw the Baker Mayfield struggling. The Bears are a 500 team. But a win is a win in my book. The uniforms look sick. The helmets look fantastic. And I mean, overall, I don't know. I don't know if we're making a mistake or not by winning these games as a Giants fan, because the Eagles are tanking. Eagles are undefeated. The Cowboys are still winning, and the Commanders. But I don't know. It's 3-1, and we got the Packers next week. I don't know.
You should never apologize for winning football games in the NFL, because the NFL is a second-by-second league, because we know the narrative would sound like the Giants were 1-3 or 0-4. Brian Daboll has this team looking like they actually know what they're doing. And yet the Cowboys game got away from them because your offensive line is not that good yet. And that front seven of the Cowboys is as good as any front seven in the National Football League. I think the only front seven better than them right now are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They got shredded by Kansas City to the tune of 41 points, but the Chiefs are going to do that to a lot of teams, no matter how good your defensive front is. So you got that front seven that you go up against with Dallas helping out your back end. That was going to be a problem for a lackluster offensive line playing that night, and they were not able to run the football consistently. You go up against a Bears front seven that's pretty good, and they established the run. And even though they don't have that thumper on the outside of wide receiver that can stretch the field, these are going to have to be the kind of ways that Giants are going to have to win these kind of games. It's got to be 17-13. It's got to be 20-17. It's got to be 20-14. But they're not beating themselves. You're going to have to go out there and win that game. The Cowboys went out and won that game on Monday night. The Bears did not have the offense identity to frighten the Giants, and the Giants did not let them believe for 1 second in the second half that was going to happen. So until they get that outside guy that can help out Daniel Jones and help out your running game, and more importantly, your defense are not playing a lot of snaps, then this is how they're going to have to win football games. But they have a coach and a coaching staff led by Brian Daboll that has a clear understanding. This is what our identity is going to be. We got a guy, Saquon Barkley. We got a running quarterback in Daniel Jones. We've taught him not to make those big mistakes that we've seen in previous years from Daniel Jones. He has not let the ball slip out of his hands and fumble the football. Nobody's been around him. He's looked like a competent quarterback, still far from polished, but he looks more competent, and that's a credit to the coaching staff. So you should never ever have your team apologize for being 3-1, because it is so hard to win games in the National Football League. Look at the Raiders. They finally won yesterday, and you would have thought they won the Super Bowl. That's how relieved they were after starting the season 0-3. The fact that you got two New York teams, a combined 5-3 right now, after the first 4 weeks of the regular season, anybody should be able to take that, whether you're a Jets fan on one side or a Giants fan on the other side.
I think Freddie just
very promising, very promising.
I think what Freddie just said just hit it right out of the park. I mean, the Giants, these are games that they would lose traditionally within the past five years. You can't be upset about it. I think the biggest takeaway for me is Daboll utilizing Daniel Jones, making him feel comfortable, and really finding a way to take his strong suits and win NFL games. Now, we can sit here and argue for hours whether or not Daniel Jones is the guy, but ultimately, Daboll wants wins. He wants to show that he's the guy, that he can command the team and get it done, and he's doing so. The New York Giants are 3-1. And Jarod, let's talk about next week in their matchup.
Yeah, they got the Packers in London, 9:30 in the morning. Me and the boys were going to be watching bright and early, but Daniel Jones might not even play, unfortunately, because of that ankle injury he suffered. And then Tyrod Taylor comes in, the backup suffers a concussion. So looking at maybe David Sills right now, David Webb being the quarterback right now, and it's against the Packers, who were in the NFC Championship game last year. So I'm not too thrilled, but I know our team is going to fight. And you've seen Rodgers struggle on the offensive side a bit this year with his core receivers, and with the trip to London. Anything could happen. But if we get enough pressure, we could startle Rodgers enough to make it a close competitive game. And Barkley's going to be there for sure. So I'm not worried about our running game. It's just going to be having to see if Jones will be able to play or not. He didn't suffer any fractures, thankfully, and I'm excited to see them play in London.
Well, that Packers defense is pretty good. I mean, you have Sean that can get after the quarterback. They got two beat trucks in the middle that can stop your running game, and that's who they are right now. They're not just going to be a throw the ball over the park kind of team, at least not early on. But if you don't get Green Bay now, watch out for them later on in the season, because he is going to get comfortable with those wide receivers. You started to see a little bit of that yesterday in the second half versus the New England Patriots, who were plastering wide receivers early. But once they got loose a little bit, they started to make those plays where he could throw them a short pass and they turn it from a 5-yard gain into a 15, 20-yard gain. But the ability to run the football, now you have to have Aaron Rodgers do everything. And that's what the Giants have done with Daniel Jones. They basically told Daniel Jones, we can't have you do everything, because that's not the kind of way we're going to win football games. We got to make sure the running game is going to supplement you, or at times you're going to have to supplement the running game. We've seen that with the Green Bay Packers, because at times that running game has taken center stage, like they happened against the Chicago Bears last Sunday night. And Aaron Rodgers is completely good with it. He's like, look, that means that's less that I have to worry about doing or trying to carry this team. And I got that kind of help. He was always asking for help for wide receivers, but the Packers had a plan in place to say it can't just be about that. It can't just be about replacing Devontae Adams with the number one wide receiver. You can spread the ball around, but guess what's going to help you? It's going to be that running game, and it's going to be that defense getting after the quarterback. We've been able to see that, because week one, people say, oh God, what's wrong with the Green Bay Packers? I said, it's week one. We saw this last year versus New Orleans, and what happened? They had the best record in the NFC and almost got to the NFC Championship game. So I wasn't worried week one, and they're going to keep building and working on things in practice. So if you don't get Green Bay now, whether it's this week, the Giants, somebody else, we could be looking at another 12, 13 win season for a Green Bay Packers team. That's going to put them near the top of the NFC with Philadelphia and whoever comes out of the NFC West.
Yeah, the Packers, to me, my one of my housemates is a big Packers fan, so it's going to be an exciting game. It's really just Aaron Rodgers needs to form that chemistry better with his receivers, and he has a two-headed monster in Dillon and Aaron Jones in the backfield, who could do what Zeke and Pollard did to the Giants that Monday night. So I hope the boys, Aziz is starting to get more into it. Kayvon Thibodeau is trying to get more into it. So hopefully those two could be a presence. But I feel like Rodgers is a professional. Has more experience than our Giants defense. So I don't like our chances against the Packers. Ultimately.
I understand why you don't like your chances, but like I tell people all the time, it can be about matchups, and sometimes a team can be a bad matchup. That's not to say the Giants can be a bad matchup for the Packers, or the Packers are a terrible matchup. At least on paper, they seem to be when it comes to the New York Giants. But we're talking about both teams have to fly to London. You don't know what kind of effect that's going to have on your players playing. Essentially, their body clocks will tell them that it's 9:30 in the morning, even though it's going to be 2:30 London time when they play over there. So you have to wonder how you're going to have to make that kind of adjustment. It's not one team having to adjust to that. It's the other team as well, how they can deal with that kind of potential distraction that can throw you off a little bit. But Jarod, you said it. The Giants are going to fight. They're not going to stand back. They're not going to back down. Green Bay's going to have to earn this victory. The Giants are not just going to give it to them just because they're flying across the pond to play in London for all that NFL money that they're probably never going to see when it comes to this game. So if you go over there, you give yourself a chance to win. You just never know. No one thought the Page would be within 12, 13 points of the Green Bay Packers, and they had a lead in that team before that game went to overtime. That's always what the NFL is always going to be. If you bring less than your best, you're going to go home and get embarrassed. And the last thing you want is to get embarrassed that far away from home, and you bring that back to the United States in a game that you probably should win, and you let it get away because you didn't have the right mentality.
Well, Freddie, I really want to thank you for your time. I'm sorry we weren't able to cover your Dallas Cowboys, but hopefully you can come back on the show.
3-1, boss.
How do you even become a Jets Cowboys fan in the first place?
Real quick, growing up in New York, I was a New York Jets fan first because I love Joe Namath. I love the green and white, love the helmets. And one time watching the Dallas Cowboys play in the Super Bowl, and Dwayne Thomas was their running back. And the way he spells his name, the same way I spelled my middle name. And my mom said, hey, there's somebody has your name playing in the NFL. And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool, not thinking anything about it. And then the next year, they had this big comeback against the San Francisco 49ers in a playoff game. And Roger Staubach's still my favorite player of all time. So that's how I became a Jets and Cowboys fan, that when they play, I don't root for anybody. I just watch the game. Whatever happens, happens. But that's the short blue book way of how I became a Jets and Cowboys fan.
I respect that.
Really quickly before we sign off, Super Bowl prediction. Who's playing who? Who's when?
Too early. the NFL's too wide open because look at the AFC. You got the Chiefs, you got the Bills.
Man.
The Ravens let 2 games get away from them. There's always a Cincinnati Bengals kind of team that's going to show up. You got the NFC, you got the Rams, the Buccaneers, they're going to figure it out. You got the Packers, you got the NFC East led by the Philadelphia Eagles, who right now I think is the best team in the NFL, the way they've been able to play. You got Jacksonville Jaguars could be a potential surprise because their quarterback's not going to throw the ball away 4 times like we saw from Trevor Lawrence yesterday. So I'm not making a Super Bowl prediction week 4 because it is still too wide open, because I don't think anybody has separated themselves that far enough this early to say that's the team to be either in the AFC or in the NFC.
Well, we know you're a busy man, and we appreciate you for popping out, coming. You are always welcome here, and there's a lot to see within the correspondence of the remaining NFL season. So whenever you want to come, we'll be talking, we'll be in touch. And
yes, sir. Thank you
I'll see
very
you this
much.
week. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
let me
you
know
very
anytime, guys. I had a blast, Jarod and Brendan, man. Can't wait to do it again. Take care.
Sounds great.
Sounds good. Make sure
Take
to
care.
follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube at NYFlyZone. And we'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.